working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Working for You. I am Roy Williams, your host. Today is World Intellectual Property Day, April 26th. And today we are going to learn about the role that intellectual property rights, its patents, trademarks, industrial designs, copyright, play in encouraging innovation and creativity. I have as my esteemed guest today Miss Jehan Williams, who is a lawyer and who is a specialist in intellectual property law. She is the registrar of the Intellectual Property Office, which falls under the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. The office is located in the Cable Building. I also have with her the Assistant Registrar of the Intellectual Property Office, Nicola St. Catherine. Welcome to this program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the World Intellectual Property Organization is an arm of the United Nations.
Yes.
What is the primary role of this organization?
Well, the primary role of WIPO, for short, is to bring awareness and also to coordinate the workings of the intellectual property legal framework. So essentially, they are the main body globally that will create programs and information for the member countries of the UN to learn about intellectual property. They administer many of the treaties that are at work for example, trademarks and patents as two primary examples. So essentially they are the umbrella body that deals with intellectual property globally.
Sure. I know that our Constitution, of course, one of the fundamental rights that human beings have is the right to property. Mm-hmm. But most times when we think of property, we think of property in terms of material property,
land and
yes, car and house and that sort of a thing. But here we are talking about the protection of intellectual property,
yes,
and people's rights and so on, and how that right to intellectual property must really be protected. Mm-hmm. But before we even get there, maybe you need to tell us what is considered intellectual property,
okay,
and what rights do people have to their intellectual property.
Okay. So that is a whole course, a whole
yes,
university course right there. But just briefly, intellectual property is simply defined as the creations of your mind. So this encapsulates things like songs, poems, plays, logos, slogans, creations, inventions. It's very wide, mm-hmm, but it relates to whatever you have created from your mind.
Okay.
So we can think about land and house and car as property, but think about how, for example, a musician makes mm-hmm money. So they write a song and they have musicians come in and they add their music to it and then they sell it. that's not that's not land, it's not house, but because of the creative aspect of it, they've created this property with their mind, so it is considered intellectual property.
Okay.
So it simply put means creations of the mind, and the rights that you have when you are a creator of intellectual property, in one word, is control.
Yes.
So you get the right to determine how it is used, when it is used, where it is used. If somebody uses it, it means that they should be paying you. You can determine to not accept payment, but it's your right. You have the control over the property. In the same way that if you had a car and I decided that I needed to go to Sandy Point, I can't just take up your car and go to Sandy Point. I have to get your permission. And if you determine that you want to charge me, then that's within your right as the owner of the car. So it's thinking about these things that we've created in our minds, using our creativity, using our innovative skills to pretty much solve problems or add to the cultural aspect of society. You have the control over it as the owner or the creator of it.
I know at some point you must have been a teacher. You taught at the college at CFBC,
yes, I
think, for a while.
Yes, I did.
And I lectured there too, and I still do. But one of the issues that I have to deal with, and I have dealt with, has to do with students writing research papers, using the work of authors, not acknowledging their source, and things like that. And while this is not a course in intellectual property and so on, basically that these are some of the issues. It's called plagiarism.
Yes.
You're using somebody else's work as though it is yours without even giving them credit for it.
Yes.
And it is, from what I understand, the worst crime, or one of the worst crimes in academia.
Yes.
People get expelled from schools for it, from universities for it. People lose their jobs for it. And recently we heard in the news that Mrs. Trump plagiarized, you know, something that Michelle Obama had done before. So it is really an issue. But I would ask you, Nicola, how are we drawing awareness to this? Because sometimes people are not aware. They simply think that you can go on the internet and you can pull something down and you can use it. Even if it's a photo. Sometimes it's a photo, but somebody would have taken that photo.
Somebody's creative genius decided, I'm going to go from this angle, use this lighting, and made this photo.
Right.
So it becomes a creation of that person's mind and their creativity. So that's something that's protected.
Like somebody like me who's working in the, Department of Information, for example. Can I just go on the internet and just take any photo and put it to a press release? No. I know that I can't.
Right.
They have stock photos, but then which is accessible to anybody, and then they have photos that you really need to approach the authors and creators and request their permission, or else you will receive a letter from some lawyer somewhere around the world to ask you to cease and desist. It's actually happened to a few locals here who were trying to promote their business, and they used information, material that was not theirs, and to their shock and surprise, they did receive some lawyer letter.
Right. And usually it's not always for money, that the person wants money, but they want you to acknowledge that this is my work.
Yes. And that's within the creator's right.
Yes.
They have a right to be acknowledged as the author, the creator of it. So
that is correct.
Sometimes they don't mind that you use it, but just give them the credit.
Yes.
Especially if you're using their creativity for profit. You are going to be making something off of it.
You're profiting from their work.
But they're not. Right.
is not yours, and it's basically dishonesty.
Yes.
When it can be boiled down to that, no?
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't see it that way, and the classic example is music. So we have a lot of young producers who will just go and hear a Jay-Z song and like the beat and figure, I'm just gonna do my own lyrics on this Jay-Z beat.
Sure.
But you have to get permission for those kind of things. You can't just go on YouTube and figure, oh well, it's on YouTube, I see it on Facebook, and just take it and decide you're going to create your own thing. That's somebody's creativity, that's somebody's investment. Jay-Z had to pay somebody to get this beat done. So
studio time.
Exactly. So now you're riding on Jay-Z's investment to create this new investment for you. But really and truly, probably half or a significant portion of your product belongs to somebody
Sure.
else.
Yes.
I know that there was an issue some time ago. I think it was last Carnival or some festival that we had, where the issue came up that someone had used somebody else's lyrics or music or something in some song.
Yes.
You know?
We actually, that's one of the outreach things that we've done as a department. Last year, we partnered with the National Carnival Committee, and we did some seminars for the soca artists and the calypsonians on intellectual property. And that was also done in conjunction with the Eastern Caribbean Collection Collective Management Organization, ECHO. They are the ones who license music. So they're the ones who you would go to say, I want to use this Jay-Z beat and I'm going to pay for it. So they now have membership in St. Kitts and Nevis, and they represent people from within the region, and the organization has agreements, what you call reciprocal agreements, with other organizations all over the world. So those artists who are protected under those organizations, they have the right to come in and say, you've copied my song. And when we see those instances, well, the person has to in, did I get permission?
Right.
And if I got permission, you have to be in a position to prove that you got permission. And if you
so they
can't,
have to bring the proof.
Right, the person can ask you to stop publishing this. They can ask you for a percentage of the profit that you've gained as a result of it, but it's within their right.
Sure.
So we see it a lot in music, and a lot of our people feel like just because it was on the internet that it means it's a free for all and I can take it.
Yes.
But we're trying to create different avenues to spread this sort of awareness so people prevent themselves from getting in trouble.
Sure.
Because intellectual property rights are what you call personal rights. So nobody's going to sue the government.
Yes,
they're going to come after Leslie Williams who copied the song.
Sure.
So the government can't protect you in those sorts of instances. That's a fight you'll have to take on your own. But we have a responsibility based on the legislation, based on our involvement with WIPO as well, to make sure that the public is aware of these things.
Sure. Now, this year the theme for World Intellectual Property Day is innovation, improving lives. Can you expound on the theme? Nicola?
We took it from the angle that we are looking at things, everyday, ordinary objects, and rather than have them as decoration, throw them out as trash, what can we do with them that we could reuse them, recondition them of sorts, and make them useful again? And innovation is not quite invention in that it's an inventive step, in that it's a secondary use for something that is already there.
Yes.
That was our understanding, and part of what it is we did, we were attempting to put out the challenge to the primary schools.
Yes.
To see what the children will come up with, see what the grade 5 and grade 6 students will come up with.
Sure.
But we wanted them to look in their household, look at their society, look around them and see, this is a problem. how can it be solved, and how can it be solved with material that already exists, that is easy to find.
Okay, so you're going to get them involved in being innovative in creating things.
Yes.
And how does this tie into, though, teaching them, the overall goal of it is their creation
Well, I
or the
think
intellectual property? Because I'm trying to.
you're trying to see the link.
Yeah.
It's fine. Well, the theme generally is about looking at the ways that how people's innovation and inventions have improved our lives, our cell phones,
Yes.
our
see.
technology generally. We have created those things. Somebody created those things, and people are spending millions upon millions of dollars to protect this sort of inventions. You only have to say Samsung and Apple to get it.
So it is to bring people's awareness to the fact that a lot of what we use
Yes.
Yes.
and so on is the creation of someone
Somebody
else.
else.
Someone
They
else.
have the patents, they have the.
Yes.
They did the research, they did the development.
Most importantly, or very important, is the fact that somebody has created this and they have benefited from it.
Yes.
There are financial benefits to protecting your creations.
Sure.
So getting our young people to see that we can create things. You don't just have to buy something to fix a problem. What if you had sat down and you put something together based on what's available to you, and you fix your own problem? Then you don't have to pay somebody else, and then it becomes innovative when you figure out a way that you could mass produce it and sell it.
Right.
And then become a creator, and put yourself in a position to benefit financially from the thing that you've created with your mind.
Sure.
Because it's now filling a need. It's not just fulfilling your need, but the needs of many other people, and so it basically becomes not just a household item, but a household name as well.
Okay, what happens, for example, even in the fashion industry, you create things and you have what you call trademarks, and you have what we call name brands and so on. For example, so you may have Nike, you may have Adidas, and then nowadays you're trying to figure out what is authentic and what is not. So, for example, you have certain products that would have Nike on them or Adidas on them, but it's not really Adidas or Nike.
Yeah, that's a whole market, because now you have people who are, like we were talking about with the music, riding on the investments of other people. So I am going to pay top dollar or more dollars for a product simply because it has a Nike sign on it or a Louis Vuitton symbol on it. So what people now do is copy that, and usually at a much cheaper cost because it's not really authentic.
Right.
And then they sell it to the public, really to gain some of that good faith and product value that Louis Vuitton or Adidas or Nike would have spent years building. So that's that piracy. You call that piracy. You call trademark infringement when people are making Nike logos and sticking them on t-shirts to give the impression that it's a Nike shirt. That is infringement of Nike's trademark.
Now, something that I see, I've seen it in Jamaica, I've seen it in Trinidad, and now I have seen it here, where you have movies, you have people with their albums and so on, and people then go and they burn a disc, or they burn 100 discs, and then they start to sell them on the street, or they start to sell the movies and so on. Is that really allowed? Is that legal?
You can burn a copy for your personal use.
But I'm talking about
but to
selling.
sell, no, that's not. That's actually infringing. When you speak about movies and CDs, that is actually copyright infringement. And again, those people who are selling put themselves at risk of getting sued by the owners of the copyright. So in a lot of instances, the directors and the producers of these movies have the entire copyright of the movie. So they can let's say they come to St. Kitts and notice that you're selling 100 copies of my movie. I have the right as the owner to tell you, take them down, or give me at least some
Yes.
percentage of what you've earned from it.
So you can burn a copy for your personal
Personal
use,
Yes.
but for commercial use,
Absolutely not.
it's a totally
Clear,
it's a
clear.
totally different thing.
Yes, and honestly, even that's usually the most glaring example. But there's another example that we might not want to hear. The copying of textbooks for use in schools.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You are actually only allowed to legally copy 5% of a textbook. Anything else, you have to get a license from the publishers to copy the book, because you're preventing the sale of their books.
Right.
So that's something that we also have to see for institutions. We just go on the internet, print out stuff and give them to students, and
Right.
it really is something that we have to consider. But again, these things don't seem to take root in the minds of our people because nothing has happened yet.
Okay.
Yes.
How aware, for example, you think people in St. Kitts and Nevis are about intellectual property rights? Probably the problem is there's not enough awareness.
Right. Absolutely agree. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm an expert in intellectual property, I'd say we're at a 2.
That is,
She
and,
says 3.
and that is very, very low.
Yes,
Yes,
it
it
is. It is very low. But again, like I said before, these things don't seem to take root until somebody gets in trouble.
Yes.
And we believe that time is gonna come very soon, because while we are not very aware of what's happening, the international and regional markets are definitely becoming aware of what's happening.
Yes.
So these are issues that will become very, very relevant to the average Kittitian and Division when you understand, for example,
There's a
why you can't look at
consequence.
your basketball right now because
Right.
TNT is not, the cable is not showing basketball.
Right.
And it seems like every man I know is like losing their mind right now because they can't watch the playoffs. But the truth is that the cable doesn't have a license to show those basketball games, so they can't show it. So, and then when it comes down now to people being upset, oh my gosh, I can't watch basketball, I pay cable so much money and blah blah blah, you understand you're upset. But then when cable says, well, the license fee that we have to pay the NBA is X amount of money, so we're asking the consumers to pay this, then you're gonna understand how people are gonna get upset. And then they probably I heard of we're gonna throw back we boxes down on the step and all these things. But these are real ways at how intellectual property really impacts people's lives.
Yeah, for example, in the music industry, for example, if I am trying to sell my album, sell my music, and you can simply go online and download my music for free, then there's basically no need for me to buy your CD. So
Exactly.
therefore you're putting me out of business.
Exactly. That's why you have a lot of artists who are gad dogs online. You'll see their music go up. For example, if you go on YouTube, and Beyonce is very, very good at it, and Taylor Swift as well. When you go on YouTube and you try to search for their songs, they don't sound the way that they sound because they've worked
some
out something
alteration.
with YouTube to make sure
Right.
that this copy that you get on YouTube is
Not
not
the
the real
genuine
thing.
article.
When you notice that a lot of artists are producing music videos with these very long intros of like they're in a movie or something like that. It's to prevent you from just ripping it, and because when you're listening it in your car, you don't want that
No.
minutes of ocean waves
Sure.
and things like that.
Sure.
So these are
So-
a lot of things the artists are doing to make it unattractive.
So the internet has posed new challenges
Absolutely.
for
Yes.
intellectual property.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges and opportunities.
And
though.
opportunities as
And
well.
opportunities as well, because as a lot of young artists in St. Kitts, there are some artists I see lots of stuff on YouTube. Highlight is a good example. Highlight has a lot of material on YouTube, and people will be able to know about Highlight and know who he is, and he may get some exposure from that. Highlight, I'm not quite sure if Highlight will be very successful in selling albums if people can just go on YouTube and convert the video into an MP3 and put it on the thing. So it's somewhat of a balance. But when you're a Beyonce and a Taylor Swift and these very large artists, and you can afford to upset a few fans because you're going to have those people who are going to go on iTunes and Spotify and all these places and download your album and pay. They really do a lot of work to protect their music and to make it difficult for people to just rip it from the internet. You can't stop it, but they make it difficult.
Now, basically, both of you are heading the Intellectual Property Office.
Yes.
And that office has work to do in bringing more awareness. As you said, you think it's only 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. That's 20-30% of the population are aware of intellectual property rights, intellectual property law, and so on. And that office has a lot of work to do. Can you tell us about the work that you have been doing? Some of the work that you have been doing to bring awareness to the community about such a serious matter. Because it's really about people's rights. It's really about how people's rights must not be infringed. And if people's rights are infringed, what recourse do they have to the law? Now I know Jihan, you...
Well, I've been at the office for about 5 months now. But even prior to that, there have always been efforts for the persons from the department to go and speak with different people, different groups. Like I mentioned, we did the Carnival Committee, so we spoke with soca artists and calypsonians. We have also put out that to the Culturama Committee, hoping that they take that invitation to have us present. So we go to different places and different organizations to try to get the word out there. Like Nicola mentioned, we are working with some primary schools in Nevis, grade 5 and grade 6, because we know when the children get excited about stuff and they go home and they tell their parents, parents have to get involved and have to learn about it as well. So we're also targeting a lot of younger students to get them aware of that. But we're also working on building our page on the government portal, so that's always a resource. We are trying to get even something as basic as an office sign, so that people know exactly where they can come to us and that our door is not just
because you're in the cable building, right?
Yes. Yes, our door, I think people just think a door is there and it's a mirror. So they come and they just comb their hair and stuff in front of it, not realizing there's a whole office behind the door.
It's true.
So there's lots of work to be done, and we will do as best as we can. Our office is 5 people, so
Yes.
5 of you.
it's just 5 of us, and that includes 1 person from STEP. So we definitely are constrained in that way, but we're 5 very passionate people about the issue. And especially from where I stand and my interest in the arts and so on, that's something I want to see our musicians, especially on the international stage. It's something that I'm desperate to see, and it's actually a mandate that we got from the Attorney General as minister responsible for this department. He wants us to see to what we can do to make sure that our artists actually financially benefit.
Benefit.
From their creations.
Sure.
So that's
So-
something that we're working on.
So
as
you,
well.
you will have training sessions.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely, and we're looking at reviewing our legislation as well.
Mhm.
To
We
support
have a
their protection.
consultant coming in next week
Mhm.
to help us frame our patent system, especially because. Mr. Williams, I could tell you that we spend so much time making other people rich
Yes.
in our office, protecting their work and their creations,
Mhm.
and we're not seeing a lot of applications from locals. And we are no less talented and no less creative. So we want to get people to understand that
Yeah.
when you're home writing your poetry and stuff, this is
It has
this
value.
this has value.
You are not seeing it because of what you said earlier.
Yes.
Because people are not aware.
Yes.
Maybe as people become more aware
Yeah.
and understand the value of their creations
and the benefit that
and
they
the
can
benefit
derive.
they can use, their
Yes,
creations and so on, then I think
Yeah.
they're going to utilize the office.
Yeah, we're
More
definitely
often.
we're definitely
Not
doing
just
doing
that.
we're definitely doing our bits. We've done I've had a lot of interventions with Shanna, for example, and Shanna has now signed up with Echo.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
hopefully, and what is supposed to happen, for example, whenever ZIZ and other radio stations play Shanna's music, something is supposed to go towards ZIZ having paid their licensing fee.
Right.
Is supposed to pay Echo and then Echo pays
Pay
Shanna.
Shanna.
So
Sure.
every time you hear a Shanna song on the radio, she's supposed to get paid.
Wow. Good.
That's how it works. That's how it's
supposed
supposed to work.
Okay. Now, I realize that you indicated in some communication earlier that you've had successful completion of a long, outstanding IP legislative review with the World Trade Organization
Yes.
to assess whether or not our laws are compliant with international law. Could you explain a bit about that?
Okay, so every few years or so, every country that is a member of the World Trade Organization has to do a review of their legislation. As time goes on and the laws change, we want to make sure that there is at least a minimum standard globally, so that you understand, for example, in every country, it should be that you don't have to register to get copyright protection, for example.
Sure.
So if our law says that you have to register, we have to change it because it's then would be non-compliant with international law. So what has happened is that unfortunately we have records dating back to 2000 that shows that St. Kitts and Nevis has never participated.
Wow.
And has never at least completed the process. So we had a workshop with some members from the World Trade Organization and the World Intellectual Property Organization in October last year, organized by the Ministry of Trade. And so pursuant to that workshop, we were able to complete the 16-year
Okay.
legislative review
Well-
in December.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Now, there are some questions about intellectual property that probably people do not know. For example, what protects the intellectual property created by artists? What protects it? Designers,
Okay.
inventors, for example. What does a trademark protect?
This is my entire master's, I'm telling you. This is okay, so there are a number of different forms of intellectual property. You have copyright, you have trademark, patents, geographical indications,
Yeah.
industrial designs. Those are the
Traditional
five,
knowledge.
and traditional knowledge. There's more, but those are the
The
main
main.
ones. Copyright protects artistic, literary, dramatic, and musical works. So that's
Okay.
your songs, your poems, your plays, your fashion
design.
designs, your photos, your computer database, your software, apps, yeah, these sorts of things.
Sure.
Copyright protects that, and copyright protects that if it is the original creation. So it has to be something that's original.
Right.
Right. So it has to be something that original. Your originality is the main element of copyright protection. So
Can
once
I
you have
intervene here, original does not mean that it's good. It just has to be original.
yeah,
Right.
whether or not it's bad.
You have to prove originality.
Yes.
You if it becomes a question.
If it becomes,
yes,
yeah.
if
Yes.
it becomes a question, you have to be in a position to prove that you were the one who created
Created
it.
it.
And that's where a lot of things get ticklish. Trademarks protects logos, words, pictures that are used to distinguish different goods and services. So the Nike versus the Adidas versus the New Balance when it comes
Right.
to sneakers. So and any different slogans or country or mottos or things like that. So your KFC is finger licking good. Burger King is, I can't remember right now, but it's probably a good thing that I don't remember these things.
Yes.
But essentially, those things that distinguish between goods and services. And when you have trademark protection, you again have control over how your logo is used. So you can't just figure you can just take up my logo and put it on your poster and say that I'm a sponsor. I have to give you permission to do
Yes.
these kind of things, and it prohibits anybody from putting that logo to any other good or service that's not connected to you. So these, like I said, is control.
Sure.
So trademark protects words and figures used to distinguish between goods and services. Patents protect inventions. So this is where you have the phones. It could be something as simple, for example, I'm aware just because of my hair. There's a particular method of locking hair. Somebody created a locking tool that you can use to lock the hair instead of just twisting it like the way that people do it. And the creator of that tool has a patent for that. She created this, she made this, and it is a new and inventive way of doing something that you've always done, which really is a patent. So the patent gives you the right to produce this tool and to prohibit other people from producing the tool as well. So you can't just figure, oh, I like see this, let me go make one like it and I will sell it. Because
So there is some secret element in terms of
Absolutely.
the patent or the
yes,
patent.
yes, absolutely.
Good. Now, but how long does patent last for? For example, how long does it last for?
20 years.
It lasts for 20 years.
20 years.
And also, how long does a copyright last for? And does it vary from country to country?
It varies from country to country, but the global standard is 50 years after you've died.
50 years after you've died?
Yes.
Okay.
I know Jamaica, for example, is trying to extend theirs to 90, I think. But you know why? You can probably guess why Jamaica is trying to protect the work of a very popular artist who is now dead.
Bob Marley.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if after that period passes where the copyright runs out, anybody
to the public
is free to
domain.
use the music, Bob Marley's music and his images.
Can I
and so on.
intervene here?
Sure, go
With
ahead,
regards to the patent, though, be mindful that patents and trademarks, they fall under the similar bracket of industrial property, wherein they have industrial applications, and in that they're viable for sale. Persons will use them. They're utilitarian and can be reproduced and mass produced. When it comes to patents, you mentioned secrecy, and that is why I intervened. When it comes to patents, it has to be full disclosure.
Oh.
Full disclosure, because then we have to understand what it is we are going to protect. You cannot tell, sir, you cannot go to the court and say this person has infringed my patent when it is not recorded anywhere as having been registered and therefore under the umbrella of protection. The other thing is it has to do with its industrial viability. The most that you can protect a patent for is 20 years. But you basically ever notice that new technology costs? There's a reason for that. So in the first couple of years, it is in your best interest to make a killing, because after that, the value of it
And people
is not
figure
necessarily
out how you did it.
Yes.
right. And after a while, most patents, they're not likely to get past 10.
It depends on the. It depends on the.
They're not, the longevity is not always there. Whereas
Okay.
a trademark, you know how old some of these trademarks are. I don't have to tell you about Chanel and all its numbers, and they go back to the turn of the century, 1900s. You can protect your trademark so long as it's in use for as long as you wish, provided of course that you renew it. So here
Every 10 years.
it's 10 years. After that it expires with the option to renew it for a further 10 years, but you can keep renewing it ad infinitum.
Okay. Now, if you write an original story, what type of intellectual property gives you the right to decide who can make and sell copies of your work?
Oh well, you are the copyright owner. You did that. A story is a literary work, and remember, I said copyright covers literary, dramatic, artistic, and musical work. So, a writer of a story, and Nicola intervened and said a good one, but it doesn't have to be a good one. It could be crappy as ever, but it's yours. That person has copyright protection, and as the owner of the copyright, you have the right to decide how it's copied, who can make copies, how it's issued to the public. So if you write a story and then you see it in the newspaper, hello, I did not give you permission,
Right.
so you can ask for a retraction. You have the right to determine if it is adapted. So somebody wants to make your story into a movie, they have to get your permission before they do that. Those are just and
Sure.
distribution to the public, any sort of way where it is used, you have the right to determine how it's going to
Okay.
be
The
used.
related rights, that is where the publishers and the editors come in. They have to get permission, and depending on what rights you give to them as to how your work is to be treated, they will now have to go through these persons as well, especially in terms of distribution.
Okay. Now, do people steal patents? Do people steal these things? Can they be stolen?
As Samsung and iPhone. that's the whole war. You stole my idea. You stole my design. You stole my technology. That's the whole war. So the war is who's really the owner. So that's a lot of what's happening between Samsung and iPhone.
And whoever loses the fight loses a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Whoever loses the fight.
Yes.
So you have these wars going on.
Yes. So
And
for
it's all
example,
economical.
the Samsung, for example, with Samsung and iPhone, there was a dispute over the design. If you look at an iPhone and a Galaxy phone, to some extent, they're very similar.
Yes.
So just this square and white square and the size of it, the fact that it has to be a certain dimension so it fits into the average person's hand, that somebody figured that this is how we've done this. So if Samsung did it and then iPhone does the same thing, well, the
Who did
claim
it
is that
first?
who did it first and who's the owner. And then if, for example, Samsung is decided to be the owner, then iPhone has to change their design.
Right.
Because what happens
Wow.
is that in this case she's describing an industrial design like a trademark. It is intended to distinguish one person's goods from another, and if they do not have that distinction, they're going to lose whatever edge they would have had in the market.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
There's lots of stealing. And
So,
lots of-
so how can your department, for example, through the registration of trademarks and so on, help to earn revenue for the government?
Well, we earn the government about $500,000 a year in the registration of trademarks. Like I said, we it's these a lot of international bodies and companies are protecting their work.
Okay.
So, trademark, mind you, if you register your trademark in St. Kitts and Nevis, it only protects you in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, Coke, for example, Coca-Cola, for example, has to, if it wants protection in every country, it has to register in every country. So that includes St. Kitts and Nevis. So a lot of the larger bodies have do their whole registration every 10 years or however often. They add more things. And this is a huge revenue earner for us. So like I said, about $500,000 a year. And it's primarily, disappointingly, international companies and persons who are taking
rather than the local
market. Rather than the local market. But this is how it gets money for the government. It also gets money for the government. For example, with patent, there are supposed to be annual fees. So there's 20 years you can protect your patent, but you have to pay for it every year. And there are annual fees that should be collected. But generally, even if we think about our department, but it is a revenue earner for the country, really, because when people see that you have a rich business environment, that usually attracts investors.
Yes.
And when people see that you are serious about protecting intellectual property, then it tends to make them feel comfortable coming here. A lot of companies have concerns. A lot of companies internationally are concerned that perhaps our framework is not very strong. And if they're coming in with a product that requires a large input of a large intellectual property input, they're not going to feel comfortable coming here. So that's a lot of the producers, people who are making things, not just people who are selling services, because to a very large extent we sell a lot of services rather than products. So if we prove ourselves to be a jurisdiction that protects intellectual property, it will attract
make us
investment.
more viable. Yes,
it will attract more multinationals.
Yes. Most definitely. Most definitely. And again, if locals could understand the value behind their own creations and their own intellectual property, this is how they make money. So we have a lot of people, I will always use music because that's to me the one that is most glaring. We have so many fantastic music producers who make music from just one app on the phone or on the computer in the bedroom, in their home studios. And the thing is that if you were able to protect it the way that is to your benefit, then you can feel more comfortable passing it on to someone in the region or somebody even internationally. But people will come, and they are here, and they do come, and they come and they listen to what we're doing, and they watch what we do and how we do it, and then they go back to where they come from and they use it and say it's mine. So we want to prevent those kind of instances from happening. So we do have quite a lot of work to do in terms of raising awareness. And we do believe, as unfortunate it is for some people, but fortunate for us in a way, that because people are becoming more aware internationally and regionally, it will become an issue because some people will start feeling the squeeze.
Right.
Yeah, the basic problem is a lack of respect for intellectual property, because
I agree, because
you can't touch it.
I have had this experience, Nicola, with students who feel that it is really no big deal.
No.
Just to go on the internet and download something and come and present it, it's really no big deal.
Until it becomes a big deal.
Yeah, it's really no big deal.
If the shoe is on the other foot, where they have invested time and money and the whole blood, sweat and tears and sleepless nights into their creation, the day somebody takes it from them or siphons material off of them and makes money off of it, they will begin to understand the need not only to protect your own creation, but to have respect for the creations of others, because then you understand what it costs them.
I remember a student brought me a beautiful poem for her IA, internal assessment,
Okay.
communication studies. And when I saw the poem, when I read the poem, I know that this could not have been the students' work. Not that students can't produce good work, but I don't think I have any Shakespeare in my class.
Oh gosh, you never know.
So I approached the student. I said, "Is this your original work?" The student said, "Yes, it is." I asked again, "Is this your work?" Well, in this day and age, if you're smart enough, all you have to do is go to Google and put in a few lines. You put a few lines into Google, the poem pops up. So, I think for people who are thinking it's not a big deal, in this day and age, internet and so on, there are easy ways of finding out.
Yes. Just
And
as
that is
easily
my
as
point.
as they found it, you can find it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That this is basically not your work. This is someone else's work. And it is dishonest
Yes.
to use someone else's work as though it is yours. For me, it is the intellectual. Here it is, we're talking about intellectual property and protecting intellectual property, but it is intellectual dishonesty.
Piracy, plagiarism, everything. Yeah. It really is sad, and we don't recognize until somebody actually feels it, either by facing some sort of consequence or having their own material stolen. I've seen I saw one of my poems on a blog labeled as that poem that Saint Kitts Chick wrote.
One that you did at Island
Yeah, and
Expressions.
Yeah.
So wait.
that poem that
so
Saint
wait.
Kitts Chick wrote, and it was a blog from, I think it was a Ross student or something like that, and I sent her an email and said,
Yes.
either take it down or give me my full credit, and she took it down.
She took it down.
So rather than give you your full credit,
Yeah, I don't mind. I'm not that sick. That
No,
poem that
but-
Saint Kitts Chick wrote, I just found that was highly disrespectful.
yes, it is.
But essentially,
They could have found out.
we would have we're trying our best to get persons to become to that point of respecting it. And you just actually said something to me that I always use as an example. When we see good performers in St. Kitts and Nevis, one of the first questions we always ask is, did you write that? We somehow, I feel like we don't think that our people are creative enough or talented
Our
enough.
people are, but
you just had your doubts about
yes,
that one
I had the
particular
doubts.
person.
I'm not Shakespeare.
Right.
So unfortunately for every other person that is able to create something from scratch, you have those who are equally adept at taking somebody else's work for their own. That's why you're suspicious.
But I
Right.
want to see us move from that, and because I use as an example as well my own experiences where you perform internationally, and the question that they ask you is not "Did you write that?" is "Where can I find your stuff?"
Yes.
There is because they produce so much, they expect that they don't question people's talent, but we're still in a stage where we question people's talent
Ability.
and their input.
We do, but also in the Caribbean, one of the things is that there is a culture of thinking that what comes from outside is better.
True.
Yes.
Yes. True.
And so therefore sometimes we think that what we have is
not
inferior. It is not good enough to what comes from probably developed countries.
Yes.
And so we do not think we have to protect it because it's not good enough
Right.
to protect.
Until somebody from another country comes in
Yes.
and does the unthinkable.
I always think of V.S. Naipaul, in his novel Miguel Street. There was this guy in Miguel Street who was always building something. But yet when you ask him, what is it that you're building? He had no name for it. But he was always making something. He was always making something. But yet, he could not give that something a name. And yes, it is true that our people, we use our intellect, we create and so on. But sometimes, are we able to really name what it is that we are creating?
Just give it a name. Just give it a name. But the thing is, I think a part of why we perhaps don't want to give it a name is that we are creators naturally, but we think it's a hobby. We do these things as hobbies, something on the side, but not realizing that if you craft it in a certain way, you can actually benefit financially from this. So we have to teach our children about entrepreneurship and marketing,
Yes.
and seeing themselves as competent enough to become great businessmen and women, and not just somebody who just does something on the side at home, just as fun. But start thinking about our creations as possible economic earners for us.
Right. I noticed you speak about we a lot, but your office has a big responsibility
Absolutely.
in terms of creating that awareness and creating the linkages, I think, strengthening relationships with various sectors of the society, professions within the society, ministries. I know you mentioned you're working along with the Ministry of Culture.
Yes, we work along with the Ministry of Culture especially in relation to copyright. So the songs, the poems, the plays, the stories, these sorts of things. One relationship that we would love to work on as soon as we get our framework strong is with the Ministry of Tourism. I can see us developing what you call a certification mark. Trinidad and Tobago actually has one, and it has worked very well for them, where it's a mark that goes on products that are made here, not just necessarily the flag,
Sure.
but you can attach all sorts of things to it to make sure that it is certified local. So like how Nevis uses Nevis naturally, they can create a whole mark on it and then develop a standard that says that products that are developed, made in Nevis, that are, let's say, use 60 to 70% of local goods, these are certified local products.
Right.
And then it puts you in a place where you can actually charge more, because these are local
Genuine
products. You
article.
can make sure that you can't go to Sri Lanka and find this.
Niche.
It's yes.
It's a niche market.
So that's something that a relationship, for example, we could develop with the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of International Trade, the development of a certification mark, and then it gives the public that surety that this product is certified Kitchen or Nivision.
Sure.
And when we were able to publish that and market that, people understand then that this is why it perhaps costs more than
Right.
a barbecue sauce, a Heinz barbecue sauce or something, but you know for sure that it was made here.
It's exclusive,
Exclusive.
to
There could be standards about toxins and antibiotics in certain things, or so that people understand that you're getting a high quality product that is made
and that's
here.
I think that's a very good suggestion, because on one hand, sometimes what we have is that we have things or St. Kitts and Nevis, but it's made in China.
Exactly.
You know, it's not really authentic to St. Kitts and Nevis. You need something that is authentically ours.
Yes.
You
So
know,
if
that
we
we can.
if we could work towards creating that sort of mark, and people understand that this is something that can happen.
Mhm.
Because we're not just here to help people protect their intellectual property, but we have a mandate as well to encourage innovation
Sure.
and commerce to some extent where it involves intellectual property.
Sure. Okay, now maybe you can tell me a little bit about the benefits to intellectual property protection and so on. What are some of the benefits to the entire community, to our young people, to our industries? What are the benefits?
I don't think I have too much to say after what you've just said, but basically it comes to this. A creation of your mind enables you to employ yourself, to employ others, to make yourself debt free in short order, to bring renown to the country because your product or your service is internationally recognized. Nobody can infringe on it easily because it is protected, and because it is protected now, it has to be, you as the creator have to be approached in a serious manner by persons who wish to partner and do business with you. You are bringing in business to the country because persons are coming in and investing and partnering with you and setting up businesses with you. And I'm just saying this to paint a picture as to what should happen when you are encouraged to create, when you are encouraged to do your research and development on your creation, when you are given such protection that you know that once it's out there, nobody is going to easily infringe your product and services. Nobody can infringe your idea, and because of that, now you begin to develop other. You create other products. You create other ideas, and it will redound to your benefit, your society's benefit, your country's benefit, and as you can see, though whoever it is invented the cell phone. A friend of mine told me a cell phone can save your life. I never saw a cell phone like that. How do you think the inventor of the cell phone feels that because of his or her invention, persons have been able to seek help when they're in distress? I cannot say in 2 minutes or more or less how you can benefit from intellectual property protection. I can only paint a picture as what is possible.
Well, you could make
Sure.
money. You can make money. You can have fame. You can enrich society. I mean, that's a part of it that we don't
Yes.
think about because something that I often think about when you look at if you were to go on YouTube and look at videos from St. Kitts and Nevis, do you feel like you are represented? Because sometimes I don't feel like I'm
Right,
represented.
right.
We see a lot of things that are very touristy, or we
Yes.
see lots of videos about Juve morning
Yes.
and
But you don't get
carnival
that brand
things.
feeling, right?
But you
It's on
not necessarily just
the
the
brand,
brand
okay.
feeling,
Mhm.
but what is on YouTube right now that Lesroy Williams can say this is my
distinguishes,
St.
right,
Kitts.
that
This is the St. Kitts
distinguishes
that I
us.
see. The activities do you like? Do you see enough videos? Do you see enough pictures? Do you hear enough stories? When the late Sir Probin Innes passed,
Sure.
like that was something that I saw a lot of stories of. He was getting ready to write his memoirs, so those stories, though somebody was sitting down with him and writing that book, that becomes immortalized in our history, so that we can say that this is also St. Kitts and Nevis. It's not just what you see on YouTube about morning and these different things, but when we write, we enrich the minds of people who are not here,
Yes.
people who are in another part of the world, and can say, wow, I never heard about St. Kitts and Nevis, let me go look for a video, let me go look for a book. And so we enrich people's lives by producing, and you get to be the proud enricher.
Yeah. Well,
by producing that sort of intellectual property.
you know, I totally agree with you, but it raises the issue that we are losing a lot of what we consider to be original. While we're talking here about intellectual property and protecting intellectual property rights, we are talking about originality. But at the very same time, our society is losing a lot of its originality. We are, in a certain sense, so much of a borrowed society in this, a borrowed culture. We are a borrowed culture. We are drawing from here and we are drawing from there and we are putting something together. And maybe that is why sometimes we do not feel that this is really our own.
That's true, and there's a whole branch of intellectual property called traditional knowledge.
Okay, so
So you see how it comes back up again, where you produce, where you protect different things, the way that our grandmothers gave us certain bushes to do certain things. The whole idea of turning corn and how that is like a rite of passage. For a young woman, you have to learn how to turn corn if you want a husband. You know, these kind of things you always used to hear when you were younger. But if these things are really known to us, we can protect them. So when we see them happening in other places and people start claiming it, we can say, no, this is a protected process in my country. And so you have to get permission from my government to use this particular process.
Sure.
So these are all these different things that we've done. How we make instruments, how we just do the masquerade dances. If they're ours, if they're really ours, then they can be protected.
They should be protected.
Yes.
Sure. Now, a lot of our culture, a lot of our history share a lot of similarities within the Caribbean. And so therefore it is not unusual to find the culture that we have in St. Kitts, remnants of it in Antigua and in other islands. So let's face it, a lot of what we have is very, very similar.
That's true. We've come from the same place. So
we've come from the same
we've
place.
come from the same place.
Our
So
history.
yes,
Right.
that's
That is
to be
what
expected.
right. Mhm.
But that is all the more reason why we need to protect what is our the creations of our mind, because we cannot help our history, but there are other things we can help. How you see something, how I see something, how my boss sees something is not the same. We look at the one thing and we see it differently. Our
Right.
minds perceive it differently. We should be able to distinguish ourselves despite our similarity in history by the creations of our mind. It's not supposed to limit us.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
so true.
So we come from a shared experience, but we don't necessarily express it the same way.
Right.
No.
None of us
And that is
going
where the
to write-
uniqueness comes in.
Exactly.
None
In
of
terms
us
of
is
the
going to-
expression.
Exactly.
None of us is going to write the same calypso. We're going to write about we're going to write
Same
on the same
theme.
issue,
Yes.
but it's
Same
not going to be
event.
expressed the same way.
No.
So the way
Right.
that we express it is
Unique
something is
to us.
unique to us. So these are the things that can be protected.
I think
Right.
part of our problem is that the failure to protect allows others to infringe, and therefore that's how we get this idea that we're all one and the same in terms of how we look at things, our culture, and how we express that culture.
I don't know if there's any other Caribbean country that says me am. I really feel like that belongs
Yes.
to us.
I do as well, and I also believe that what belongs to us is the use of that word relish. Somebody
Relish.
told me that, and I don't think that anywhere else in the Caribbean, and in fact the world, that people say relish. We say
To be meat.
right. We say
Yes.
we say relish to mean meat.
Yes.
It's not used, and somebody pointed that out to me. Relish is basically, those condiments and so on that
Yeah.
we use on hot dog and all
Yes.
kinds of things and so on. But we say relish to mean meat kind.
Yeah. I never see. That's two
Exactly.
examples we have right
You know,
there.
so that is. Now, Jihan, you're preparing to host a today workshop in collaboration with the WIPO,
WIPO, yes.
WIPO, on building respect for IP for law enforcement officials and magistrates in July. Could you give us a peek into that? A little bit about what?
Sure. So on the 3rd and 4th of July, we're going to be welcoming QC Michael Edinburgh and Louise Grunen. She is the director of the division of WIPO that deals with building respect for IP. They're coming to do a session specifically with the people who are responsible, for example, for arresting, prosecuting, and adjudicating on cases that involve IP infringement. We don't have any formal decisions going to court at this stage, but like I said, we believe, based on the queries that we get from local, regional and international bodies, that people are coming and they're going to be taking people to court for infringement. So we have to make sure that our police understand their role, that magistrates understand what they're supposed to be looking for when these cases come before them. Customs understands that when they see boxes of bags marked Louis Vuitton, but they're of a lower quality, what can they do? And these are issues that come before them.
Sure.
So we're making sure that the people who are responsible for enforcing intellectual property law understand what their roles and responsibilities are.
Sure. No, I think too that I would at some point invite you to give a workshop or to speak to my staff in information, because we journalists and those who work in public relations, putting out press releases and so on, that is very, very important to understand what the issues are.
Yes.
So to make sure that there is no infringement of intellectual property in terms of the posting of photos and using other people's work and all of that sort of thing.
The use of your work by other people.
And the use of
because
our work by
you create every day.
We create every day. And I know of cases where our work has been basically taken and
change a few words
here and there. That happens. The headline is changed.
Journalism.
Journalism.
They call that journalism.
And that is basically against the law.
Yes.
And I have constantly said it all the time. Here it is, we're going to send out a press release, and then you're going to find it somewhere else. The headline is changed. It has SKNIS on it. Sometimes SKNIS is taken off. It's not right.
And that's the only difference.
It's not right.
Yeah, and you're the copyright owner, so you have the right to say,
cease,
take it down,
and desist.
And in some of these instances, perhaps they're not making any money, but you have
any money, but it's not right.
Right, but you have the right to ask to be sufficiently acknowledged as the writer.
Right.
Speaking of the upcoming workshop that we have in July, I am hoping that as another benefit to it is that maybe those persons involved in law enforcement and in the court would be able to tell us what their restrictions are as to what they are allowed or not allowed to do by law. Because then we need to go back to the legislation to see what we need to fix or what we need to adjust in order to allow them to broaden their scope of enforcement.
Sure. Okay, ladies, we are going to go to the phone lines in the time that we have left.
Okay.
I think we have about 15 minutes left.
No problem.
Okay, the numbers to call, we are going to open the lines 465-2555. That's 465-2555. And the overseas number is 1718-577-2916. It is 1718-577-2916. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Williams, and good afternoon to the ladies that are there with you this afternoon. I think they're very informative, and they have given a whole lot, more than enough, really. And ladies, I congratulate you all on what you all are doing. And a few things that I want to speak about because, I'm in the broadcasting field and I do have a lot of respect for most of the local artists here in St. Kitts, and I think they're doing a great job, especially this year. They have produced better music than anything else. But I have some concern, and first, before I ask the question, I would like you to, at the end of my question, if you can give the information of the organization that handles the rights for music to be played on radio station. I think there is a yearly fee that you have to pay. If you can give us the phone number and or the information of the address where we can get to them, that'll be fine. With the artists in there now, I know it's something that is done all over the world with their songs. You have to pay a certain amount of dollars each time that you have played their song if you're not with the organization that covers that whole area, and they get that payment at a certain time of the year. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen if the radio station decide that, well, okay, we have to pay for playing the music, which is all good. I'm for it. But when the artists in there, our local artists, comes to us for interviews, they have to pay for the interviews. To release their music, they have to pay to release their music. And as we all know, our artists in there here in St. Kitts don't make much money because most of the time, when we get a song from a friend or from another friend or from another friend, a copy of a song, or they will have it on the internet and go and get a copy on the internet, or they will sell it in their hands and say, hey, give me $5 or $10 for that CD. Our problem with most of our artists in St. Kitts, they do not produce their music properly, and they do not market their music to an extent that it can be sold on the international scene where they can make more money. Our artists in there ain't going to make much money with getting the percentage of the songs that are playing on the radio. They might get maybe a couple of hundred, maybe $100, $200, $300, which is all good still. Every little is good, no matter what it is. But do you think that it's going to be a lashback at the artists in there here in St. Kitts, knowing that they have such a problem in getting the music market on the international scene? That's one. And I know also that the piracy law is here in St. Kitts because years ago, when Bridget Blucher came to St. Kitts, she had 2 songs out, I'm Still Here and Strength. And those songs were hits throughout the Caribbean and in St. Kitts also. And she came to St. Kitts to perform, and she took a walk around to see where her CDs were played. I mean, being sold. And one was on Liverpool Road, both Liverpool Road. She went and she saw them there selling. They were copies. And she asked about them. She went to the police station, and the police didn't do anything. So who is going to police these CDs from being copyright and sell? And that's my question to y'all. Y'all have a good afternoon. I think y'all doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Well, before I forget, he said to do it last, but I'll do it first. The organization that I think he was referring to is ECCO, ECCO, and it is stationed in St. Lucia, but they have the rights for the Eastern Caribbean. And you can go to their website for their contact information. So their website is eccorights.org. So that's echorights.org to get more information. There are local representatives. The local representative for St. Kitts and Nevis, her name is Grace Richardson. I'm not quite sure if I can give out Grace's number on the air. So if you're interested in getting her information, you can contact us at the office and we can probably guide you from there. The question was, will artists have some sort of backlash when they have to pay to appear on radio stations. I believe that there will be some sort of backlash, but the same way that radio stations are being asked to understand that artists have to get paid, the artists have to understand that the radio stations have to generate income to stay on air. So it's sort of it's a balance, and it's really for each stakeholder in the exercise to represent their side as well as possible as to why they will now have to be charging to accept artists on their stations, because, and I think the artists will appreciate that in order for them to, the radio stations, to pay the licensing fee, which is going to pay the artists, they have to pay something up front. So it's really as well for radio stations and other broadcasting institutions to develop a sort of a business model where they can develop some sort of system where an artist can decide that I can waive my fee or some sort. So, but radio stations have to pay to play, and artists will of course have to help the radio stations make money.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Quite informative. I'm really impressed by the ladies there. They really know their stuff. What I have to say is this. To me, I may be wrong, but to me it seems like persons here who get like into the music industry, I believe that they are doing this for a hobby. That's one, a hobby.
Yes.
And so that's why you see they don't really go out there to know what is available for them and to make themselves become knowledgeable or informed, so they can take steps or measures to protect their creativity. Now, on the back of that, I'm going to talk to, let us say, like music festivals. We have artists who come in from overseas. They price their stuff, and that pricing is honored. But by all accounts, it seems like the local artists who are invited to the program or to the show, they are told what they will be paid. And to me, they accept it. So I don't know. That is why I go back and I say that it seems like they are doing this for the hobby, because it seems like they don't even know the value of what they have. And so they accept any and everything. And there are some also, when they are invited to other people's shows or programs, you know, their product is used, other people benefit from it hugely. And you know what these artists are told? Oh, you know, the exposure. You're doing it to get the exposure. I mean, these people have to spend money to maybe buy outfits. They have to spend money for whatever else and whatever else and whatever else. And they go and they get nothing. And some of them look at it, I mean, they're like wiggled into believing, oh, the exposure. I mean, how far will that exposure go? Beyond the environs of the night show? The area there where the show is, where would this exposure go? So you see, so I think our artists, they have to decide what they really are doing. Are they really serious about the music, or it is a hobby, right? And another thing, in terms of the, what you call the protection, what you call it, the copyright laws and the protections and so on?
Yes.
And you say what? This organization is what, just in the Caribbean or St. Kitts? How would that go?
Well, if you're referring to ECHO, they're the ones that they're an organization that musicians can sign up with, and they essentially police all of the Eastern Caribbean islands, and even go as far as to send representatives to music festival who will stay there and write down every song that was played at a particular time, and then they go back and they say these songs were played. And then the ECHO then collects from, say, for example, Music Festival Committee, the organizing body, get a licensing fee. And then every person whose song was played at Music Festival gets a portion of that licensing fee. So that's how that works. But the artists have to sign up to ECHO to be able to get that money. but they work for the Eastern Caribbean islands. But
Okay.
there are other organizations throughout the region who ECHO would have what you call a reciprocal agreement with. So when the person goes to music festival, they're not just going to write down the songs of the artists who are signed up with them. They're going to write down every song, and then they're going to share that information with all of the other organizations like them across the world. And
Okay.
then they collect money on they collect the music festival's money, and then so for example Shanna's money is going to go with ECHO, and ECHO is going to give her. Beyonce's money is going to go to the organization in the US. Machel Montano's money is gonna go to the one in Trinidad. So that's the sort of arrangement that they have.
Okay. So you brought in something like international. So because I was coming to that with the next question, I don't know if it is plain enough. If it's plain enough for me to understand, but I was going to ask, what about when an artist's music, whether from St. Kitts or the Caribbean, is played outside of the Caribbean?
Right.
Who is there to soldier that to ensure that they get what belongs to them from what is done outside of the Caribbean, let's say in Europe or
Right.
England and so on?
It
Do
works
you have
the
any
same
liaison
way.
with any other organization over there that you know that will protect our artists' music,
Right.
provided that they sign up? I will
Right.
continue to listen.
Yes.
All right.
So it works the same way. So just the same way that as a representative from ECHO is gonna go to music festival, there are representatives in almost every country who are gonna go and police that. Yes, they're gonna go and police that. So the same way if De Jour's music is playing in Germany, the organization in Germany is going to collect the licensing fee and send it back to ECHO, and then ECHO pays to De Jour. So they have what you call these reciprocal agreements that pretty much ties all of the reputable collective management organizations together. So everybody collects and then they distribute according to where the artist is. But the caller also said something about music festival that I want to point out. I totally agree with what she said about how awful it is that people are selling our artists exposure and expect that this is something that they're gonna do. Like you can take exposure to the bank. Exposure is always good, but at the end of the day, if you're in it for a hobby, you're gonna be satisfied with that. But if you want to make this your career, exposure is really a drop in the bucket. So it's something that hopefully artists really, I totally agree with her sentiments about them taking things more seriously.
They're not in it for the business. They don't
Right.
see it as a business.
Right, but for the music festival point though, with the locals versus the international artists, I think music festival committee, and this is just my theory, I have not confirmed this with them, but I think their theory is that if we have a budget and we're going to pay 4 international acts, then you can understand why they might try to they could only get 4 because they're going to pay for 4. But then the local artists, I believe they're going to invite 10 local artists. And with a limited budget, then maybe you might want to pay them more. But rather than paying, if you have $1,000 and you get 10 people, then each one is gonna get 100. But I think that's the approach that they've taken, rather than inviting 3 or 2 and then paying 2 $500. But I think the people want to see the locals. People want to see the locals on the music festival. So I think that's really a constraint that the music festival committee has. But like I said, this is just my theory.
Yes.
Wanting to give our local artists that stage, and give as many of them as possible, means that they might not be able to pay all of them what they necessarily want, or are demanding, or even deserve.
Well, ladies, guess what? We
Time
are
is
out
up.
of time. An hour and a half
Yes.
have gone quickly. And so I would ask you to, anything that you want to say in parting, you can go ahead.
Nico. Say whatever you don't say.
Mr. Williams, thank you very much for having us. This, to the best of my knowledge, is the first time that the Intellectual Property Office has been able to celebrate World Intellectual Property Day in this fashion. We have had panel discussions, we have had other small events to try and make sure that the day does not go by unnoticed. But I think this one may be one of the more far-reaching events that we've been able to pull off, and although we regretfully have not been able to celebrate it yet in the manner in which it deserves, this is definitely a step towards that direction. Thank you very much for having this afternoon, and I'm glad that from the feedback of the callers that there is that interest out there. I know it is, but due to the lack of awareness, I am aware that there'll be more interest if more people knew.
Sure.
Thanks again.
Yes, and of course, like to echo those sentiments, we're grateful. Our minister was very insistent that we make an appearance on this show because of the reach, and we appreciate the opportunity. I just want to say as well to anybody else listening, we are very open, we are very willing to assist in any way that we can. We don't give single legal advice in terms of how to help one thing. If you run into a problem, we cannot necessarily help you out of that problem, but we are definitely here to help you prevent getting yourself into problems. So we can give you guidance on if you want to become a music producer, what's the best way to go about this, the ways to do this. If you're interested in making some sort of product, we can give you guidelines on what to consider. We're not telling you how to do your thing, but how to make your thing, but just considerations that we want you to keep in mind, one of which is always keep your mouth shut.
Yes.
Don't be so willing to give everybody your wise ideas and so on, because then people tend to steal them and then benefit from it.
If you give them, they steal them.
But that's true. That's true. So it's something to consider. To our young entrepreneurs, young and old, everybody is producing. We're all producers. We're all creators. Whether or not some of us want to take it to the realm of making money from it is another issue. But this is where we come in, and we can help you try to figure out a plan how to make money off of your intellectual property.
Right. So they will have to come in and register their work, register their intellectual properties, and that's
it depends on what it is.
It depends on what it is.
For copyright, you don't have to register.
You don't have to register.
But for trademarks and patents, you absolutely have to register to get protection.
Right.
But these are things that we're willing to sit down with you and discuss and figure out a framework for you to actually execute. So we're here and we're available to the public. We are located in the Cable building on the ground floor. You don't even have to enter the building. Our door is right there. There's a little sign directly opposite from the Cable entrance, but we're there 8 to 4, and we're reachable by email iposkn@gmail.com, 465-3916. My name is Jeanne Williams, and my assistant's name is Nicola St. Catherine. We have a very willing staff, and we love when we get guests. So we're open to help, and we'll continue to do our part to fulfill our mandate of encouraging other people to become inventive and innovative and creative, and work with ministries and really make sure that St. Kitts and Nevis produces products that we can all benefit from.
Well, my gratitude to both of you, Jehan and Nicola. I know you made the request quite some time now, and so you came very prepared to share your knowledge with the public about something that is so important, the protection of their rights, the protection of their intellectual property, and how they have a right to protect that. And while you said that you think there are very few people, I think 2 or 3 out of 10, you said in terms of the awareness, I think that it starts somewhere.
Yeah.
And the awareness is actually building.
Yeah.
And that is the good thing. So, and your office is basically doing a lot of good work in trying to bring awareness to the community about the protection of their intellectual property. And I want to encourage you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, and for more people to actually know where your office, and you say you feel very happy when you have guests.
Yeah, we do.
And so on, you know. So I thank you very much for appearing on today's show. And I do hope that at some other point you will come again.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll be more than happy to.
Sure. You have been listening to another edition of Working for You. Today my hosts were Jihan Williams, who is the Registrar of the Intellectual Property Office, and Nicola St. Catherine, the Assistant Registrar of the Intellectual Property Office. I am your host, Lesroy Williams. We will see you next week.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.